Welcome to the BJJ Mental Coach Podcast. I'm your host, Gustavo Dantas, and I want to start giving a shout out to all hardcore listeners who have listened to all 143 episodes, now 144. Sometimes people ask me, hey, Gustavo, we're going to release another episode. I do the best I can with the time that I have, running school, running the AZ BJJ League, the nonprofit Jiu-Jitsu Tribe. Content creation for the BJJ Mental Coach is very time consuming, and try to have a personal life. So little by little, I do what I can. So today I interview Alex Martinez. Alex is 51 years old. He's a first degree black belt. He is the host of the podcast, the BJJ Foxcast, and he's the owner of Ares East Mesa BJJ in Mesa, Arizona. We talked about starting late in jiu-jitsu. It's interesting because he started when he was 40, and almost 10 years later, he fell in love with jiu-jitsu and he chose to pursue his passion and start a business and start the academy. And now the academy is very successful, 270 members, 9 head coaches, and 6 assistant coaches. So beautiful story. If you're listening this to the audio version, at the end of the podcast, I share my final thoughts, and basically you're going to hear my takeaway and why I titled the episode Transform Your Life. Before I start the episode, if you never had a chance to check out Jiu-Jitsu Tribe's Instagram, take a look. Soon, probably in June, we will be promoting. For people who don't know, Jiu-Jitsu Tribe have a partnership with Browse Fight, great kimono brand, to have a custom-made Jiu-Jitsu Tribe browse for fundraising. And the cool thing is that it's only pre-order. So the gi, that because you're buying that gi, one student from a social project, it's basically receiving the same gi, not just a flimsy gi, like no, the actual same gi. Sometimes you can buy different ones, less fancier, but this one, it's cool that it's the same one that you have, and they're going to have the same experience. And only pre-order last year, we did white, black, and this year we're going to do a blue one. We're able to donate last year 175 geese throughout the year, so it was awesome. And let's see what it can do this year. This is the first batch. Maybe we can have another one. And any schools that want to get involved in fundraising, and then we can do different types of fundraisers to provide geese for social projects. So if you have more interest, please send us a message and just follow Jiu-Jitsu Tribe. So soon we're going to have the all the information, the picture of the gi and the link, and you can use as a text right off too, because it's a donation. And you can buy a gi, nice gi, by the way. And the cool thing of having someone actually to wear a gi, believe it or not, a lot of people don't know, but man, a lot of people just not only they can't afford training, but they cannot afford a gi. So this is a awesome initiative, and I thank Browse for the partnership. So if you want to learn more about it, at Jiu-Jitsu Tribe. And that's it. Let's get to the episode. Who's Alex? Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to see you again, Gustavo.
Yes, for people who don't know, actually had an interview with Alex. We're recording this April 2024. So I was in his podcast episode 90.
Yep.
And the BJJ Foxcast. And I just asked him before I started recording if he could beat my record there of 3 hours and 20 minutes. So that was pretty long. But what is a good takeaway that you got from that podcast? If you have to say one thing caught your attention.
The one thing that caught my attention is how deep you go into the mental coaching. And a lot of us have that inner voice, that negative inner voice. And I think you called it the
dark passenger.
Dark passenger. I want to say traveler, but it's passenger. And, a lot of us, we have the voice, but we don't know how to deal with that dark passenger until you give it a name, right? And then you can kind of confront it. And that's really what I took from it. Just that little piece. I mean, obviously there were other things that I took from it as well, but that one piece that kind of stayed with me And now it's like when I hear it, I give it a name, that dark passenger.
Yeah, because I like to say, like, man, no one has free pass. You know what I'm saying? We all have, and it's going to be your roommate for life. He's going to live with you no matter what. And we don't, when I start to study that part of personal development and I have approaches, people say, like, you learn how to control it, but it's not like really control it, but I learn to become more aware of the voice.
Yeah.
When you feel like, because sometimes, man, we just, for whatever reason, we just, had one of those bad days, wake up, and for whatever reason, just feeling kind of down, motivated for whatever reason, and kind of catch her, like, what is your dark passenger telling you? You know what I mean? And you're going to have those battles 24/7. There are days, I like to say, because if you want to look into like a war, you're going to have multiple internal battles throughout the day.
Yeah.
And there are days that we're gonna beat the hell out of them. You know what I mean? There's times that you're going to get beat up. It really depends what's going on, personal life, business, whatever. The most important thing is that awareness of the voice. Just like catch yourself, because when you don't, man, it really just kind of pile up. And I always say, like, some people, if you see, when you talk about high performance, because we talk a lot about how high performance here, and when I say high performance, doesn't mean just athletes, mean entrepreneurs, but it's just some people deal with the voice better than others, and just
Yeah.
straight
And
up.
I find it hits me when I'm fatigued, whether it's decision fatigue or physical, especially when you're dealing with the day-to-day stuff that entrepreneurs deal with, and it's vast, right? Like, you got to make payroll, you got to do this, you got to do that. And then that's where that dark passenger really, really comes to light. And I find that, man, I really have to take almost like a physical approach to a mental issue, right? I have to jump on the mats, or go get a hard workout in, or really exert myself physically so I can kind of reset and deal with that inner voice.
How old are you when you started training jiu-jitsu?
I was 40 years old.
40 years old. So we most likely, if someone is listening to the podcast, chances are either they are a practitioner or they have practiced jujitsu at some point. Most likely, maybe there's some fan out there, but most likely there's some jujitsu connection. And maybe there's someone who's training, and probably there's someone that it trained and be like, man, I wish I was training again, got caught with life or whatever. So maybe someone who's listening right now might be thinking, yeah, I want to train, but that dark passenger is just kind of like, nah, dude, you're too old for that. So what did your dark passenger tell you when you're 40 and said, I think I'm going to do jujitsu?
The funny thing is, anybody with a rational mind would not have, so it seemed rational at the time, right? I'm in the middle of my, my sales career. I was doing really well, and I wanted to just get back into shape. And you hit a point where, you know, it's literally do or die, because I had gained a ton of weight after I did triathlon for a few years, and I gained a ton of weight. And I made a decision at that point that I had to make a change. I had to do something. And when I walked into my professor's place, Paul Nava, they were getting ready for PANS, and I didn't know what PANS was. So I walked into the glass was fogged up and sweaty, and they're really doing some really tough training. And had I not, I think had I not been at that point where I said, I've had enough, I have to do something. I don't know that I would have thrown a gi on and jumped on the mats, because the times were a little bit different, right? I mean, it was kind of I hate to call it a Shark Tank, but it was tough. It was tough, especially going in at an older age. But overcoming, you know how when you make something up in your mind, it becomes so big that you shy away from it. But once you start taking steps to enter that world, whatever it may be, whether it's triathlon or CrossFit or jiu-jitsu, you realize, yeah, I can do this, right? I can do this, because in that Shark Tank, there's a pool of sharks that actually want you to succeed. And that's what helped me a lot. I don't know if I've answered your question, but
Yeah.
anybody in their 40s, I would say if you just take that step to jump in, someone in that academy will take a step to help you. And that's what helped me.
I feel that you did answer, because I like to say that the voice that lives in your head, it's the bully, right? The bully that lives in your head. And you got sick of the bully. You know what I mean? Like, you know what? I'm sick of it. So you kind of like, yes, you stood up and won that battle, because there's so many things. You too old, you're gonna get hurt. What are you doing? You know, that. So if you don't catch, but again, that comes that point. Jim Rohn likes to say, it's like, enough. It's just enough. Like, I'm done with this. You know, something needs to be done. And that's one thing for sure, that people who are listening, and you're, man, you've been training for 10, 11 years now.
11 years. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. In 11 years, imagine how many people from training partners to now running a business, students that just come and go.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Just get hit with life for whatever reason, whatever
Yeah.
that is. Imagine me, it'll be 34 years. What I've like, in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
imagine like what I've seen of, when I look back, friends of mine in Brazil that used to compete together. And at one point, they're just like, man, I got 2 jobs, I got kids, and I don't have time. And I'm not saying that it's an explanation or whatever, because people do make it happen. But that's the moment that the dark passenger is just bullying him every day. It'd be like, you don't have time for that, dude. No,
Yeah.
no, then don't, you don't have time for that. You're broke, So that battle of like banging heads with your dark passenger, and then like, you know what? Have you heard of the book, The 5 Second Rule?
No.
Mel Robbins. So if you're listening at home, you can probably just go on YouTube. There's tons of content with her, and it's a really cool concept. The concept is pretty simple, and it's just her sharing stories of success, of just saying like, man, your brain, you got about 5 seconds until your dark passenger jump in. You say
Oh,
like, you know what I mean? Like, all right, I'm gonna do jujitsu. Yeah, it would be cool. I'm gonna start training, and then the dark passenger wake up like, what'd you say? Where are you going? And then you start questioning yourself.
yeah.
So she talks about that, about the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Like for example, not to use the snooze button, like, because when you hit boom, you wake up, and then you get there like, oh crap, I need to get up, and in 5 seconds,
Mm,
your dark passenger is gonna kick in, like, dude, just a little more. You're
yeah.
fine. So in those 5 seconds, boom, go, because that voice gonna get louder, and you need to like fight with the voice. And I was talking with a young student last week, as a matter of fact, and then he is saying, I thought it was awesome, because he's like 18, and he's like, hey, I'm finding, having a hard time with the motivation and stuff to come, and he's a blue belt. So I talked with him about the idea of the dark passenger, and I said like, hey, check out Mel Robbins. Just, I don't know, because he's not really into, like, when I was 18, I wasn't thinking about
Yeah.
personal development or reading personal development books. At least I wish. So I mentioned to him, dude, take a look, just listen what he has to say. TED Talk, there's interviews. And then I saw him yesterday, and he said like, hey, I watched the content. It actually did help me to kind of associate to that thing, like, hey, that voice gonna kick in, like, to relax, just chill, watch TV, you go tomorrow. So be able to listen to the voice, and we will apply this in everything, every day, 24/7.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what that does, and self-development obviously plays a big part, but even seeking counseling and talking to somebody, to a
Oh
therapist,
yeah.
what it does is it gives you a tool chest, because we have this empty bag of tools, which is like, this is your life. Okay. This is what, there's this chaos in your life. And if you fill that bag with the tools that you need to handle certain you know call it an objection, or I'm sorry, an obstacle. Um, if you have the tools to deal with it, life becomes a little bit, I don't want to say easier, but manageable. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it took me a long time to get there. I read, self-development books when my brain just wasn't ready for it. It's like a
I hear
jiu-jitsu
you.
technique that you
Yeah.
don't get until 5 years later. My brain just wasn't ready to accept that I was worthy of that success. First off, right? So I grew up with a lot of negative self-talk. And it's taken me decades to overcome it. So I'm in a much better place now, thanks to things like, therapy and self-help, stuff like that.
Yeah. So a little bit away from jujitsu, but still on the topic of the dark passengers. So I feel that, man, I give so much respect to military, law
Mhm.
enforcement. It's not for everyone.
Yeah.
That is for sure.
Yeah.
So, how was your decision to join the military? You were in for 9 years,
Yeah,
right?
9 years. Well, I
Yeah.
joke that it's 9 years, 6 months, and 28 days because I got recalled. I got
Mm,
recalled to active duty after 9/11, and then we got sent to this depot to do security, and they ran out of money, and then they just sent us home 6 months
mm.
and 28 days later. But I did 9 years of active duty. Um,
So how was that talk with? Were you even aware of just like I'm going to sign up? Just I'm going to join. So how was the when you look back now? How was that battle?
Well, for me, it was a pretty easy battle. Ever since I was a little kid, I was going in the woods and shooting things. I always had a BB gun or a 22 rifle with me. We grew up in South Texas, so there's a lot of open land to shoot in. I don't know if it's still out there because of all the SpaceX and everything that's moved in. I probably couldn't go do those things in the same spots. But I grew up fishing and hunting and, camping out and, doing all that, stuff. Um, and, when I hit, I guess, man, maybe 10th, 11th grade in high school, I wanted to join the Army. I wanted to be an Army Ranger. And I go to the Army Recruiting Center and I, take the ASVAB and do all that stuff to get ready. And, the recruiter said, well, you need a 50 to get in. You need 50 on your ASVAB to get in. I'm like, okay, I'm a pretty decent student. I can get a 50. And took me to get the ASVAB, and then we get in the car because he had to go to a different town because my town didn't have it, whatever. And on our way back, he's like, "Man, you got your 50, man, you're in." And I'm like, "Okay, so what now?" And he's like, "Well, you join the Army, and then you go regular Army, and then while you're in, you can apply to go to Rangers." And I'm like, I've got a couple friends that signed up, and they they had contracts to go to Ranger school. So it just struck me weird. And then I go to the Navy guy, and I I go, "Hey, I want to, join the Navy, be a SEAL, do whatever." And then the guy's like, "Yeah, man, we can get you a contract to go right in." And he was able to look up my ASVAB score, and he said, "Yeah, you scored high enough, you can get whatever job you want." And I got mad because I really I wanted to join the Army, but I felt so slighted by the Army recruiter that I ended up going in the Navy. And it wasn't like, I had a career path planned and, things were going to just go my way. I was on a bad path at home. My mom, was raising us, on her own. And I was that kid, man. I was spoiled. I was just like, did whatever I wanted. My mom she's a saint, by the way,
Hmm.
but she did her best to try to wrangle me. And then, but she and I both knew that if I stayed in Texas where I was growing up, I was going to end up in a bad place. I had some friends going to jail. I had, just stuff like that. And so joining the military saved my life, man. It really did.
Nice.
I mean, there's good and bad that comes with it because I went in and I reinvented myself. I became, that a good citizen, finally, right? I became that good citizen. I had not a blemish on my record. But I lost a piece of who I am because I reinvented myself to be somebody else. So then it took me a while to figure out who I was. I don't know if that
Gotcha.
makes any sense, but
Mhm.
that's what kind of my path into the military.
Were you introduced to martial arts there? Like some
So
type of martial arts?
so being in the Navy, I was just regular Navy. Um, so being in the Navy, you don't get any martial arts training at all, at all. It's all about fighting fires and keeping a ship afloat. Okay.
Okay.
And Navy life is very boring unless there's a fire because that's a fight you can't lose.
Yeah.
You're on a boat, you're in the middle of nowhere. That's a fight you can't lose. So they take it very, very seriously. Everybody's responsible for fighting fires. But I was introduced to it had to be some kind of submission, grappling, jiu-jitsu, something like that. When I was in my A school, I went to Great Lakes, Illinois for gun school. Right after boot camp, you pick your job and they train you for that job. I was a gunner's mate, so gun school. And I had two roommates that were wrestlers, and there was a wrestling mat in one of the base gyms. So we would go up there and wrestle. And there was one guy, this is about 90, 91, 92. There was a guy who no one wanted to wrestle because he would hurt your arms. He's like, yeah, that guy cranks on your arms and it really hurts. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to wrestle that guy. So in a way, that was my first introduction to submission grappling, but I never paid attention to it. I didn't, I didn't ask like, hey, what is that stuff? It was like all the wrestler guys were like, just stay away from the guy. So, but no martial arts training in the military at all.
So let's go back to your first day of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I like to, when people come in to do an intro class, and sometimes you can feel a little bit of the anxiety because it is intimidating. You know what I mean? Like, especially give even more props when it's a woman, because I mean, you know that it's so many more guys and it can be intimidating. So I always kind of like start like, hey, first I want to congratulate you for being here, to making the decision. Because I said the same thing, like, it must have been a battle. How long have you been fighting about the decision to come here to take a class? And some people are for years.
Yeah.
Right. So one thing that I like to ask too is like, how long have you been aware of jiu-jitsu? And of course you're gonna hear like, you hear all kinds of like, responses and stuff. And then they say sometimes, could it be a month? Could it be a year or whatever? But I always say like, how come it took you this long to look for a place to start training? And then you see that it's a lot of the internal dialogue. And like, you're gonna do this, can you really? And then start going like that battle. So just for them to be able to like, okay, and it's interesting how some people even open up and say like, that's interesting because I've been debating for a long time. I've been sitting on my couch and next thing my chest is just pounding, like I hear, man. So congratulations for being here. So, and you said you walked in an environment that is like a competitive environment. So it's extra intimidating for some people, for some other ones. For some people, like, hell yeah, I love it. For some people, be like, oh my God, no, this is too intense.
Yeah.
So how was for you the first experience?
So the only way to describe that first experience is it had intimidating how would you say it? It had intimidating vibes to it, but as soon as I walked in, everybody turned and smiled. They're going through some of the toughest training I've ever seen in my life. They're really grinding, and they see a new person come in and they're like, hey. So that in itself really kind of turned my, okay, so this seems okay. Like, they're training hard, but no one's really trying to hurt each other. So that kind of gave me some calm. That was my first impression. The second was Paul coming off the mats and talking to me. I wanted to sit quietly in a corner and just watch, just wanted to be respectful and not interrupt. And Paul came over and had like a, good 3-4 minute conversation with me, and just, what brings you in, what are your goals and all this stuff. And he said, hey, why don't we meet, tomorrow? And, I'll be here by X amount of X time and we can come in and talk. And that meant a lot to me. It kind of gave me a little bit more calm. So every experience that I had in the very beginning calmed me down a little bit more, and then calmed me down a little bit more, so that process of getting on the mat seemed like the next logical step.
So so that's the question. How long did it take you from the awareness of the existence of jiu-jitsu to actually get involved?
Oh man, I avoided jiu-jitsu for so long. So I didn't have like a friend that did it and be like, oh, you got to try it. Gotcha. Nothing like that. But, watching UFC, obviously that was, I always had this, idea that I wanted to do it. But actually, no, I have to go back and I have to backtrack a little bit, because there's a gentleman that I credit with me signing up for jiu-jitsu. His name is Kevin Bunyan. He's a black belt at Gracie, Arizona. And shout out to Kevin. And Kevin is he was going through nursing school. So he and his former wife were going through nursing school at the same time my wife was going. So the four of us would go to ball games and we, have dinners and, whenever they had time, right? Because they were always studying, but they were like in that little group, right? They had to be around each other a lot. So I just kind of joined in because that's the only time I got to see Amy. And so he was a blue belt at the time. And we would be sitting across from each other at, dinners and all this stuff. And he would just talk about jiu-jitsu constantly. And I'm sitting there, Gustavo. I'm sitting there like, if I got to listen to one more jiu-jitsu, I swear to God, I'm going to flip this table. So, but the reason I always bring Kevin up is, I had done triathlon up until about 2011-ish, and I was in great shape. I did my last triathlon at 167 pounds. By the time I walked into Paul Nava's jiu-jitsu studio, I was 238 pounds. So I thought I was on a fast track. Yeah, I was on a fast track to at least, I don't know, diabetes, at least, if not a heart attack. So that's when I really, coming from that background from triathlon and working hard, that was just looking at myself was unacceptable.
Now, from when do you feel that it sparked a little interest to curiosity to competition from the get-go, because it comes to with kind of the environment, the vibe of the school, as far as like when you have people who compete, people talk about it, and then I start hearing and start sometimes getting curious. So how long did it take you to get more curious about it?
That's kind of a funny story because I kind of I caution people when they do what I did. So I'm in training for maybe 3 or 4 months, long enough to have a t-shirt, right? A
nice
t-shirt, right? And so I have my Paul Nava BJJ t-shirt, and they have I want to say it was maybe the Southwest Classic, 2013. Maybe I think I did that one, so it had to be a prior one. So we have this tournament coming up on Saturday and everybody's all fired up and, please come and support. I'm like, all right, cool. So I was always trying, just very quiet. I wasn't a competitor. I was just there to learn and get in shape. So I'm going to this tournament to check it out. I want to go see. So I bring a book, I bring my iPad, I bring my little earbuds, and I'm going to sit in a corner and just watch. Right. So I climb up in the stands, and it's chaos, right? It's Phoenix
College, right?
Yeah, Phoenix College. So, I get up in the stands and I'm sitting there, and there's a guy waving at me from across the gym, on the other side of the bleachers. And it's this guy, Ross. He's at the time he was a blue belt, like right on the verge of purple. And he says, "Hey, we're over here." And I was like, I guess I'm part of we, right? So I went over there, and I never looked at my book or my iPad or in my earbuds. It was all like laughing and joking with all the guys, watching the competitors, yelling, shouting, just cheering them on. And I just decided right there, I was like, I'm going to do this. Whatever I have to do, I'm going to do this. And so I just jumped in. That's the way I've always been. It drives my wife nuts, by the way.
Now let's talk about back again to the mental. How was your first experience? Exciting, nervous? How was the internal dialogue?
For my first tournament?
Yeah.
Ooh, so it was definitely the Southwest Classic 2013. So that was my very first tournament. I walk in to the venue and I find one of my teammates who's like, on the verge of getting his blue belt at the time. And I think I might have had one stripe on my white belt. I was brand new. And I walk up to him and I'm like, "Hey, Jeremy, where do I go?" I don't know what to do. So he's like, "Hey, throw your gi on. We're going to take you to the test scale." At the time, you had it like in a corner. You had to walk back around. And so we walked back in the corner at the test scale. He's like, "Oh, dude, you're 2 under. You're perfect." And he's like, "You can drink a little water." But I was so nervous, I refused to drink water. Right? I just refused. So, I'm, when you're that new, you don't know what you don't know. And so I'm getting all of this advice like on the spot from people, like one of the pieces of advice was one of my guys says, "Okay, if you get somebody in your closed guard, it's their responsibility to get out." So they could get called for stalling. And I'm like, cool. Well, I'm down 1,000 points by the time I get this guy in my closed guard. So he's sitting in my closed guard, happy to, give up the penalties. And then the same person, like, you got to open your guard and make up your mind.
Yeah. Okay.
But there was a lot of that. It was, I have that video. I'll have to show you the video of my first ever match. It's unwatchable. I got completely destroyed, but I enjoyed every single second of it. I'm so grateful for the two guys that were in my division that beat the crap out of me. They got their blue belts right after, by the way. And, but that just started a string of, I want to do this again. That bug bit me and I never stopped.
Now, I do like to ask for the follow-up tournament just to see, because before, like you said, you don't know, right? You're going in, I don't know. But now you have a clue what's going on. Like, okay, I checked my weight, how it is, but how was mentally like, okay, now I'm going to something, I have a clue what's going on.
So yeah, so my follow-up tournament went about the same as the first one. I got beat and I was out in the first round. And it was, remember the in-house tournament that Nava had? So it was that in-house tournament. And then finally, I was having a conversation with my sister and I said, you know what? This isn't going to happen again. Like, I gotta figure this out, because I hate to say, oh, I'm super competitive. I'm not. Like, I just, when I find something I enjoy, I just run with it. And so I thought, okay, so I started assessing, at the time, I know my technical ability is limited, right? But there are certain things I do have control over. I do have control over how much I do wrestling. I have control over how much I come in for fundamentals. I have control over things, diet, nutrition, stuff like that. I have control over that. So all of the controllables I started to control. And the first thing I did was I started going to Aaron Wilson's wrestling class. Probably the most, I love you, Aaron, but probably the most unpopular class in any jiu-jitsu school.
I know he taught takedown classes too, like at our school. So it's like, it's good for about a week, maybe two people. Yeah, takedowns class, and be like, dude, screw takedowns class.
Yeah. Yeah. So, at that point, Aaron and I, it was basically a private. I was doing a private with Aaron every week because I was maybe one other person would show up. So Aaron showed me one single takedown. But that single takedown gave me a lot of confidence to walk on the mat, because at first I was like, well, if he does this, I'll do that kind of thing. No, this time I took control of it and I said, I am going to shoot in and hit my double leg because that's what I've been trained to do. And it was the Arizona International 2014 had to be, because it was the following year. And I scooped the guy up, I take him down, and I felt this adrenaline rush. It was so amazing. But I'm a white belt. Like, this is like putting something together is like fantastic, right? And I finished by the out of bounds line, so they stopped and they put us back to the center. Well, I get back to the center, and I turn around, he's not there. He's still laying on the ground holding his rib. So I won my first match by takedown.
By KO, nice.
By KO. But that really sparked the start of the immersion. I like to call it my immersion into jiu-jitsu. I fell in love with it. I don't know what it is. It's not winning. It's not even the winning. It's the putting something together that I really fell in love with.
That kind of fulfillment is priceless. It really is. When you like get to use a move for the first time, it's incredible. So I want to go back to something you said, that it's always good for people who are listening. In our conversation at your podcast, one of the quotes that I brought it up a few times was the Tony Robbins one. It's in your moments of decision that your destiny is shaped. So when you made a decision that are like, I'm sick of it, I want to do jiu-jitsu, that shaped your destiny big time. And then you made a decision to expand on the jiu-jitsu journey, because you don't have to compete, you chose to, and then you go. But like, now dealing with the two losses and some the two tournaments, and I know I talked about how like I had my issues, and of course you're not alone, but many times that moment of decision, two things are going to happen. Either your negative voice is going to tell you that dude, just hang it up.
Yeah.
It's not for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or you just get pissed and be like, nope, no. And that's again, you back into that internal battle. So it's very important for everyone who's listening out there. And if you're a brand new competitor, you just only had a few experience and you had a sequence of like, bad performances per se, you got to really pay attention to your internal dialogue. That is not going to push next thing like, I'm not going to compete because whatever excuse, but like the main reason is because you're not getting the outcome that you actually want. So props for you to just make it at that decision. It changed everything because you could have just said like, it's not for me and cool. Okay. Yeah. And you just keep going. So it's very important for people out there that if competing something you want to really try more and attempt, be ready for the internal battle because it's not gonna end, and then it's just different battles. You're gonna have good days, like I said, bad days, but just props for you for actually battling the voice. So now, when was the moment that you had a spark that you said like, you know what, I kind of want to do this professionally and eventually teach or have a business? And what level were you at by that point?
So my whole life, I've been surrounded by serial entrepreneurs. Like my brother, my dad, they were always doing something. My mom was always encouraging that entrepreneurial spirit. And as a kid, I would sell like, we'd get candies and stuff from Mexico, and I would sell those. When my dad was in the import and export business, and he would get like shipments of like used Xerox machines, and I would scavenge the Xerox machines for like toner, the big tubes, and I'd sell those, right? Because he can't sell them. They're only selling the machines. So I was always in that mode in my life. That's why I really enjoyed sales, because you're basically an entrepreneur, right? You're intrapreneur, so to speak, right? But as far as coaching, so I kind of stumbled into coaching by accident. I was an assistant. I just helped one time a day, and then I had one class a week. And then next thing you know, I'm the head kids coach. And okay, awesome, right? And then my schedule changed because I changed jobs and I could no longer do that time slot. So then I went to the morning, right? So I started coaching adults, which is like very gratifying because kids tend to not do things because they just don't feel like it, right? Adults tend to not do things because of all of that baggage, right? I can't. The I can'ts are so heavy that they feel they can't do a front roll and survive it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And getting them past that point, that's our job, right? And then, and then getting them to the next, and then the next, and then next thing you know, they're doing great, right? They're almost on their own. We let go of the bicycle seat and they just take off. But my wife and I were talking once, and I was really, like I said, the immersion started, and I stayed immersed in this lifestyle. And she asked me one day, she goes, "Well, how far are you going to take this? How far are you going to go with this?" And I said, it's not like we're going to open a school one day. And we both laughed. We both laughed and laughed. And then in 2020, that's when I decided that I'm going to go pro. I'm going to go full time. I'm going to open an academy and give it a go. And it's been probably one of the most gratifying things I've ever done.
Is it a little before pandemic, after, during?
So I made the decision just before the pandemic. We incorporated just before the pandemic, and then the world shut down just after we incorporated. But we really didn't, excuse me, we didn't have brick and mortar until late that year. So at that point, things were loosening up a little bit, and people honestly were just tired of being told what to do. And then full disclosure, there was people getting free money. So, you tell them, hey, sign up, free trial, or whatever. And then started building our client base from there.
Now, back to the dark passenger. How was that dialogue about like, you know what, I'm going to open up a business, and then your dark passenger wakes up and be like, what'd you say? We're going to do what,
Yeah. So, you spend a lot of time. Well, I spent a lot of time, chasing a dollar and, looking for that security, 401ks, investments, all that stuff. And now I'm going to put an abrupt stop to it. Right. And withdraw withdrawal because it takes money to open an academy. I didn't want to be leveraged, so I wanted to make sure it was my money that was going to do it. And 48 years old, Gustavo. Imagine, if somebody's at 34, right? 34 years old, they're probably past their, competitive prime, probably won a few things, right? And now they're ready to open an academy, and good on them, right? I'm 48 when I'm doing this. And the dark passenger said things like, who's going to want to learn from an old man?
Mm-hmm.
You haven't won anything of significance. Yeah, you compete a lot. How many world championships do you have? How many Pan American championships do you have? That dark passenger was beating the crap out of me every morning. And it was a battle. It was a battle. The first thing I did to get myself out of bed is I took the snooze button off my alarm. Any alarm that I have doesn't have a snooze button. I get up. That's it. We're up. Because it takes one little snooze, like you said, that what you call the 5-second rule or something like that. It was so difficult because, again, like, and I battle with that a little bit. I'm to say I'm past my prime is an understatement. However, I do everything I can to be, the best coach I can be and be in as good a shape as I can be. And that's really all I can do.
So having conversation with students or friends or whatever, and let's say for people who are listening to this, of course, we all do, people that they might be in a position that, like you said, like, okay, I'm doing okay financially, I'm okay, but you're just getting tired, like you said, the enough is enough, but they consistently losing the battle with the dark passenger, and they do have an idea. I'm not even talking about jiu-jitsu, right? Like becoming an entrepreneur, even if it's not an entrepreneur, like follow a different path that they're passionate about it. So do you have people that come to your mind, friends that have talked with, and what are one of the main, I don't know, ideas that you try to share with them? Because I guarantee that we talk about how, like, a lot of people who listen to this podcast, besides being jiu-jitsu practitioner, we do have a lot of school owners that actually listen, entrepreneurs, and have people just train jiu-jitsu and they like, but we do have a lot of entrepreneurs. So what is like a concept or an idea that you think that you can share with the listeners, or the same that you have shared with people in a similar situation at your academy?
So there's a couple things that I share with people, and the first thing you have to do is you have to get really comfortable with people telling you that you can't do something, because there's no shortage of people. By the way, they're all doing less than you, but they're all telling you what you can't do, right? There's no shortage of those folks. You can't really care about what anybody says or thinks. You gotta really be driven by what it is that you want to do. But there's also a strategic way to do it, right? If you're going to replace your income with, your passion, make sure that your passion can replace your income. I'm not a big advocate of like quit everything and jump into your passion, because there may not be any money in it. But if you're able to, do your 9 to 5, and then your 5 to 9 is your exit strategy, that's when you're working on your exit. You got to do it. You got to do it, because getting up every morning at the behest of 6 people was a nightmare for me, Gustavo. It was like working for other people, and getting a pat on the head, regardless of, how much just for what you bring them, right? The money that you bring in. I was in sales, so that's kind of how we measure ourselves, is a nightmare compared to, waking up every morning and being responsible for 300 people. I'd rather I would rather answer to 300 people that I love, right? That are following me in this passion project that I'm doing, than work for 6 people in something that I hate. Because, and I know this for a fact, I'm making a fraction of what I used to make in sales. Okay. My bank account is doing better than it was doing when I was in sales. And the only thing I can tell you is that if you're in a toxic environment, okay, and you're just drudging through it, and people, hey, listen, people have to pay their bills. I'm not telling them not to. But if you're in that toxic environment, everything, including the fruit of that toxic environment, is toxic. So I could not get rid of that money fast enough. And it's not something I did consciously. It was subconscious, right? My subconscious said, you don't want to be here. You don't want any part of this. Get rid of this crap, right? And now, like, every moment, every day is a gift. Every moment's precious. Every dollar is precious, right? Because I just love what I'm doing. I just love it. I can't help it.
Now, what did you say? It's because I mean, since 2020, so it's still fairly new business, and it's going well. But in this moment of your, let's say, your career from 2020 to now, what is say one of the biggest entrepreneurial struggles that you're kind of went through developing? It could be people have different things. I can say marketing, staff, or whatever. Like, what do you think has been one of the biggest ones for you?
Understanding that you need systems in place as you grow. And if
Mm-hmm.
it and the faster it grows, the more dangerous that becomes, because if you don't have systems in place, because it's really easy. I mean, it's really easy to bring in, a couple hundred people. It's really easy, but it's even easier to lose them if you don't do the right things. Do you have the right staff? Do you have the right amount of classes? Do you have the right coaches in place? All of the systems, does everybody share the vision? Is everybody on board? Did you make the right hires? All of those systems, if you don't have those in place, it's a house of cards at that point. It will come crumbling down. So that's really what I've learned to get ahead of. Like, I don't plan after the fact. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say I want a 5-to-1 ratio of, coach to kids in the kids class, 5-to-1, right? Maximum 5-to-1. I build that ahead up here. I already have my coaches on the mat ready for that 5-to-1. I don't have the 5-to-1 kids yet, but they're going to be there, and my coaches will be ready because I have those systems in place. Yes, it's costing me money, but this is short-term loss for long-term gain. If you have a single person teaching a kids class and you think, if we need assistant coaches, we'll get them later. Next thing you know, you got 35 kids in that class and it's chaos. The parents are looking at you like this. You're not ready. You're not ready for that, right? But if the parents see that you have the systems in place, they'll be like, oh no, they got it. We're good. So that was really the biggest thing to understand. And I made some mistakes. I made some hiring mistakes. I made some class mistakes. I stretched myself thin, but processes, that's really important.
Beautiful. And well, the learning never ends, right?
Yeah.
You know what? I would love to tell like everything went perfect with run the school. Yeah, I mean, it's not like, at least not with me, but like you have a course. Here we go. Here's how you run the proper jiu-jitsu business. You know what I mean? You just
Yeah.
hit your face on the wall. Like, for example, when I move, how interesting, when I moved to Arizona in 2000, um, schools weren't even doing like auto pay yet. You just
Wow.
come in, you pay cash.
Yeah.
Luckily, like, so I was already teaching in Brazil, so I lived in Vegas for close to 2 years, and then about halfway I was there. John Lewis, you mentioned to me like, "Yeah, I'm gonna start doing this here." With it was like having contracts and have, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So by the time when I got in Arizona, and I told Trevor at a Easy Commerce, like, hey, John is doing this thing. It's just because it's tough, man. As you grow, it can be paying here, pay cash
Yeah.
here. Like some people like, oh, but people don't want to pay get in a contract. No kidding. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but eventually this had to change. So that's something that was just like learning how to, okay, now we work with an agreement. Because the same thing in Brazil was so like everything loose, and then brought that culture to the US, of running like a jiu-jitsu school. It's just, this is how it is. And then the traditional martial art was, far ahead in business.
Yeah.
Taekwondo, karate, they were like, way ahead on that kind of, like you said, the systems and in place and procedures and everything. So I think you notice since you start training the past 10 years, like kind of like how the jiu-jitsu business has evolved
Oh, for
overall.
sure.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, like we talk about in your podcast too, like before it's not an intro class. It's just like, yo, come in, here's the gi,
Yeah.
go, you know. So
Yeah.
now it's a lot more the experience of the person, you know, the customer is coming in. So does everyone does that? No, whatever. So that's why it's a people go in, they pick and choose, they try different classes, different places, and they choose for themselves, you know, pretty much it. But just like, and having an open mind to adapt to whatever is changing in the market.
Yeah. That and there's a there, we're in the people business, right? But at the end of the day, you've got to make decisions that are the best for the club, because
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have a lot of individuals that are going to be chirping, saying, "Oh, we need this, and I'd love to have this, and I'd love to have that," and that can be that can be pretty tricky if you
Oh
decide
yeah,
to follow that path. So yeah, there's a lot to it, and like you said, there's no handbook on how to run the perfect jiu-jitsu academy, because it's a people business, right? And every academy is going to have a different culture, I guess, and different,
absolutely.
yeah, just a different vibe. But I've never, like, I've traveled a bunch, and I always pack a gi whenever I travel, but I've never been in a place where I didn't like it, or they treated me poorly. It's always been pretty cool. Maybe I've been fortunate, but yeah, there's a lot to it, but it's probably one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Mm-hmm. What would you say if you need to give a piece of advice for the your younger version when you started jiu-jitsu, you started that journey? If you just could give him a little tip, what would you tell him?
If I could go back to day one, week one, I wouldn't just be doing jujitsu. I'd be doing a lot of mobility training as well. I think as you get older, I really believe that the hard work is the easy part. Lifting weights, training a lot, doing a lot of jiu-jitsu. That's easy because I love it. It's taking the time to make sure my shoulders are mobile, my hips are mobile. I'm
Mm-hmm.
avoiding injuries, because they just come on and they pile up. The injuries will pile up if you're not taking care of the body. I would probably drink less alcohol. I'll be honest with you. I drink a lot less alcohol if I could go back and do it again. That was kind of my military days. We would, go out all night and then come in and PT and you're fine. But I was just much older when I started jujitsu than when I joined the military. So it's something that I probably would not do if I could go back and do it again.
It's a great point, dude, especially for the crowd that is listening. We do have, I feel like our crowd, you know, listen to podcasts is like a masters, you know, like crowd
Yep.
30 and over, but of course, I have all age. And what you mentioned, it's huge because when you're young, you get something kind of like, I don't know, stretched out or whatever, you know, it's like, ah, it's okay, you know, fine.
Yeah.
But for sure, man, over the years, like now I'm always dealing with something, you
Yeah.
know, for sure. And now, but which I've been, you know, for a while, but now I'm even more aware of physical therapy,
Yeah.
of like massage therapy or chiropractor or doing all that. Like when like some people have like bad shoulders, knees, elbow, you know, like people have sometimes there's something, you know what I mean, that happen more often. My thing, unfortunately, were elbows.
Yeah.
I and arms. I broke it 3 times, dislocated 3 times, you know, so I had surgery. So always have something. And and I remember when the first time I dislocated, that was, man, maybe a month before I moved to the US or something like that.
Mm.
And it dislocated bad. It's just my whole arm and all the way to the ribs were like black and blue. It was a mess. And so basically, I just removed my cast and moved to the US. No physical therapy. I didn't have money to do anything.
Yeah.
So you imagine the mess that this year of like scar tissue. And so I struggled with elbows for a long time. And eventually this one ripped and I had surgery and then have the other one or whatever. But to your point, yeah, for people who are even if you're, you know, even if you're younger, like, man, don't underestimate the idea. And one of the things that I mean, at this point right now, even if I don't have something kind of like, oh, I'm injured, there's always something, a little thing happening. You know what I mean? So having the consistency of going to physical therapists that you like, you connect with. Big shout out to Greg with Control Physical Therapy in Scottsdale. Also now he's in Tempe as
Yeah.
well. So he's taking care of a lot of jiu-jitsu people. And it's definitely nice to have a PT that understands like
Mm.
jiu-jitsu mobility, because some people might be like, no, we got to stop training and in this and that. And then it's nice to have someone like, wow, it ain't like that, but let's try to adapt, like calm down. But having someone that you can find close to you, and if you can have maintenance, the better.
Yeah. And it's just like anything else, man. Like you know, any person that walks into, our academy, they're they're athletes. We're all athletes, right? We just have different levels, right, at which we compete, or at which we train. But as an athlete, you've got to have a plan. So, like you said, staying ahead of things, going to Greg and at Control Physical Therapy, that's important. And seeing your doctor, so having a doctor that you deal with. Maybe I go to Restore Health AZ, he's a naturopath, Dr. Neil. He's a jiu-jitsu. I think he got his brown belt, but he's under Maracaba. But he's a wizard. I mean, he helps me with PRP and different things like that. And so when I hurt my knee and I was going to have it my knee scoped, well, I found a ortho that a lot of jiu-jitsu people go to, and then I got Greg lined up for physical therapy to help me rehab. I had I work with a trainer to lift weights. I got him lined up to help me rehab, and I got my naturopath to help me with the needle therapy, stem cells, PRP, whatever it is we were going to do. But I had a plan to get myself back in. And I don't care what level athlete you are, you've got to have some sort of plan, right? And you got to. I think athletes, especially the people that come in their 40s, don't take themselves as seriously as they should. This is your
Mm-hmm.
body. You only get one of them. You got to take care of it. It may be an aged Ferrari, but it's still a Ferrari. You got to, change the oil. You got to got to maintain it. Good tires. You got to put good gas in it. You can't put crap into your body.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out here to a company, New Hope Regeneration. So last year, I dealt with like bulging disc and stuff. It started maybe like 2008 or so. One of those like coming down to your arm, like, so for anyone who is listening and you have any back neck related issues and it started radiating, that is bad, dude, because it's not just about like, oh, I cannot train jiu-jitsu. Now it's affecting your life
Yeah.
overall, sleep, mood, everything. So back then I was able to improve. And then last year, about a year ago, I was traveling, I was going to Richmond in Virginia for a seminar, and I just had one of like overnight flight, and man, I just slept in a bad position. And when I got there, I'm not saying like the flight did it. I mean, it's years of, putting there.
Yeah.
It just happened that triggered that the whole side of like my head numb and to the side. And I was
Oh no.
like, got a concern like, dude, this is not good. And then so there was a point of like, okay, and then um working on, I'm always working with Greg anyway, so we're doing the stuff, but it was like little by little, I was like, man, this is not, of course training jiu-jitsu is not going to help the
Right.
process,
Yeah.
it's like you go there, you treat it, and you train more jiu-jitsu to mess it up again. It's part of the deal. But then got to a point that like probably like August, September, like so inflamed that I'm like, dude, I cannot I cannot train, and teaching was becoming an issue.
Wow.
Like by the time I get home, and so I was in a seminar. I was teaching a seminar. I was like a jiu-jitsu camp in North Carolina, and New Hope was there, and I met Kevin, and he had like a presentation about stem cell and like, hey, this, and just telling stories, and how some people in jiu-jitsu um, was getting involved. A great friend of mine, Bruno Bastos, uh, uh, did the same process again. And then finally, like, you know what, I need to do something. And then by the time I was on, my neck was really, really bad. So December 1st, I did in Vegas. They have offices like all over the nation, not in Phoenix, but I went there just for the procedure. And it said like, wow, it's been in your system for like in a month to 6 months, you know. So I was like, okay. So finally, when I was about 2 months in, I'm kind of moved. On one day, I woke up and I moved my neck a little bit. It's like, that's kind of nice, you know, a little better. I'm of course not fixed, but I'm saying like I'm moving a little better. So I felt like start having chunks of it every 2 weeks. I'm like moving better. So right now, I'm basically almost 5 months in. So it's supposedly to have one more month
Yeah.
in the body. And man, I am moving much. I've been training hard. Um, and it's not 100% yet, you know, but I mean, it doesn't bother me like for
Yeah.
training or sleeping. And even if you say like we're gonna stop right here, like I'll take it. You know what I mean? It's so much because it got to a point I couldn't really do it. And now I'm just dealing with other thing, a shoulder injury that's been for a little bit over about 6 weeks now. That again, training jiu-jitsu doesn't help, but I'm doing everything I can on top of that.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna look into other possibilities with this. But just want to give the shout out to New Hope Regeneration because it really helped me and getting back on the mat again. So people want to check out if you know Instagram, I think is at New Hope Regeneration.
Yeah.
So great stuff.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. And that's really important to find, somebody that you trust and somebody that has a track record, So yeah, that's
Yeah.
no better way to give them a shout out.
So let's just change gear here real quick. I want to maybe a suggestion that you can give for a book. So when I say a book, just give you time for you to kind of process and think about a book that has made an impact on you or whatever moment in your life. Because like you said earlier, there there are books that maybe you read 5 years ago and like, nah, and then you read again 5 years later, like, oh my God. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that a different version? Or like, no, it's the same. We just didn't pay attention. Were you ready for the information? Right.
Yeah.
So regarding it could be business, personal development, but what is a book that in a specific moment of your life made an impact on you, a big impact on you?
That's a loaded one because there's quite a few, but two books come to mind. Number one, The Power of Habit.
Mm-hmm.
I forget the author, but that's basically explains to you why you do the things that you do. Right. The Power of Habit is a fantastic book. I've read it twice. The first time I was like, all right. The second time it really punched me in the face because there's things that you do subconsciously and consciously that are just a byproduct of whatever your environment or the way you were raised or whatever. I highly suggest that book to people. The second one was actually, it was a jiu-jitsu book that I read 2018. No, had to be after that, maybe 2020. Anyway, it was a book by Richard Bressler and Scott Burr called Worth Defending. And it's basically Richard Bressler's journey in jiu-jitsu, starting with Jorge and Gracie in, like, I believe the 70s or maybe like early 80s, and living with them in Torrance, and the whole garage thing and everything. But he was basically a drug addict that met Horian by chance, and they ended up having this lifelong friendship, and jiu-jitsu kind of changed his whole trajectory in his life. But what really stuck with me is because he started jiu-jitsu at 35, was 5 years before I did. He really gave me some perspective on what our mission should be when you hit a certain level, right? A certain age. Amy and I quit calling it years. We call it levels. So I'm level 51 now, but at when you hit a point where, okay, you're not going to be a super competitor. I believe the Mendes brothers are a very good example of this. You can put the amount of focus into your students afterwards that you put into competing, whatever your endeavor was. So I was relentlessly competitive in my sales life. And I just put all of that energy into my academy in preparation for teaching, in preparation for, getting people ready to compete, in preparation for, just keeping myself healthy enough to stay on the mats and be that example to my students. I put all of that, that relentless competitiveness comes out in that form.
One thing that you mentioned about doing your own training and I'm talking about now let's go talk high level black belt adult class division type of deal. And I feel that it's fascinating when you have a high level that's still active and they have a very competitive school that they do well, meaning they have systems in place because he
100.
can do, you know what I mean? The name that comes in my mind that I'm such a big fan, in my view, the number one American in jiu-jitsu as far as like the impact is Rafael Lovato. I think that dude is by the way, I don't remember the number right now here, but I had an interview with him a few years ago. It was a great interview. But that dude, everything that he got involved, he succeed in high level. Like from jiu-jitsu to no-gi to MMA to business. Didn't come from any family, like wealthy or anything like that. He's like in the middle of like Oklahoma, in the middle of nowhere. He's traveling to Brazil, his father helping the way he can, loading credit cards, you know what I mean, to pursue that dream. So whatever that dude got involved, and then his school at the same time that he was like winning world championship, and then he's got one of his students and becoming a world champion too as a black belt. I was like, dude, this is incredible. Because usually it's like you do one or do the other, you know what I mean? Of course, like I said, we had the support system, like we're putting the systems in place to make all this happen. But it's definitely incredible to be able to you see someone at that level be able to still high level school, high level business, and then pursue and do MMA, and he's still competing right now, masters and adult division. So I'm a big fan.
100%. And the funny thing about guys like him is like, he has every reason to be arrogant and he's not. You know what I mean? He's super humble. Like when, a lot of people, they want to hang on to that adult level competition, for as long as they can. And rightfully so. They've earned their spot, right? But when he made the decision to go to the Masters division, I remember an Instagram Instagram post that he posted and just complimenting everybody in that building, like from Masters 6 down to Masters 1. Or I think there's a 7 now, but he was so complimentary of all the competitors and all of the athletes, and it made me really, if I didn't admire him already, it made me admire him even more because he's really really a good dude and someone that's worth emulating.
It's interesting. Now has changed a lot. The Masters division is so huge right now, but before was the transition for the high level black belts adult that I feel like they have the no, I'm not saying everyone, but just kind of like joking but kind of true that you go through some phases, and the first phase is the denial. I'm not doing the master. No, I'm doing the adult. And then get to a point that is like the acceptance. I'm gonna do this one.
I'm only the Master Worlds.
And then it's like 6 minutes are kind of nice instead of 10. And then there's the embracement. They're like, all right, let's do it, man.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Because the denial with that 10 minutes, dude, is brutal. You know what I mean? And with those like athletic fellas right now, I mean, it's insane how from like this crop of like 18 to 22 that you see to 23, the kids with, a 20-year-old with 15 years of jiu-jitsu. There's a lot of them.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So it just happens that there's a belt there, but like the amount of knowledge, I mean, I tell you what, like you get some of the best purple belts in the world or whatever, and you throw them like there's no belt, just throw them in a black belt division. They're gonna have their hands full. It's not just like, oh, I'm gonna beat up this purple belt.
Yeah.
No, 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 no. Be ready because they're gonna come hungry. And you know what I mean? They train with high level guys all the time. So they're like, I already trained with badass black belts. So it's just happening that it's a different color, but the level, it's unbelievable.
It's, the first taste I got of that was when I met Orlando when he was coming from Brazil before he moved to
Mm-hmm.
Hawaii. I didn't realize that level existed. You know what I mean? Like, because everybody that I trained with we had a few adults in there, but they were a little bit, a little bit longer in the tooth than the regular, 18 to 20-year-old. And we didn't have anybody in the academy that had been training for 15 years and was a purple belt. I never saw that. And then here comes this kid, this blue belt. I think he was maybe 17 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he is just running through people. And I'm like, what in the world is going on here? Because you gotta remember, I came in late. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know what I didn't know. I'm this maybe a blue belt at the time, maybe a white belt. And people are explaining to me, oh yeah, that guy's been training since he was like 4 years old. I'm like, oh crap. Okay. That's a long time. That's a really long time. A lot of knowledge there.
Yeah, and the way every year, of course, like the world championships, the main tournaments. Let's talk about adult.
Mm,
Uh, they're just getting rougher and rougher. They're not gonna get any easier
yeah.
every year because again, 18-year-old blue belt that has been trained for 13 years is a two-time juvenile like world
Yeah.
champion who's been, like killing it. Dude, is just amazing what they're in, the level of commitment from even, for example, for parents
Yeah.
that actually invest and believe in they want to do it and then support. And it's awesome when this happened. And one thing that we did talk about uh, in your podcast too, like how people ask me, about like, do you think Brazil is going to stay behind, the rest of the world in jiu-jitsu?
Mm,
And I mentioned, man, first of all, Brazil is a very big country. A
yeah.
lot of people don't realize that the amount of people who practice jiu-jitsu, and there's some small little towns in Brazil that you see the training room, like, oh my God, they're like, kids are incredible. The
Yeah.
thing is, the opportunity to them to get to big tournaments, to get to events, to travel, to get their visa approved, this whole thing. And comes to the same thing I mentioned during our conversation there. There's uh, nothing's more motivating than necessity. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
for them, it's like that's it. However, I value a lot people who don't have the necessity, but have the hunger to
Mm,
pursue it.
yeah.
Like for example, let's take it to the extreme. Kobe Bryant, dude.
Mm,
I mean, he grew up in a necessity. I mean, his dad was a pro ball player. You know what I mean? So financially speaking, it'll be like, I'm good, and you still have that like obsession that is a completely different level. So it's one of those that not everyone would agree or whatever, but I think maybe even if Kobe was one of those like broke, it's just the way that he's wired. If he came
yeah.
from like a low income area or whatever, it's just the way the dude is wired. And it's just that it just made it, of course, it's just the cards that were dealt, and then he was able to be in a family that have. So the support, of course, is incredible, but it needs to come from the competitor, from the person who really wants to have that drive. um
Yeah.
you mentioned Orlando. For people who don't know, Orlando Monteiro, he is a black belt. He trained with me in Arizona and with Jair in Brazil. So he always, like in the summers, you go back. So he's basically a GD Kimura black belt. And that was awesome from him, of having that foundation there and working with us here. And he is blessed that his dad like really hustle a lot in his life to do well and believe in his journey, on his goal of becoming a jiu-jitsu competitor. So basically jiu-jitsu for many of those guys, that's your college, dude.
Yeah.
That's your high school, that's your college.
Yeah.
And so in a position that his family in that point of doing well financially, they'll be like, I don't need to go move somewhere, live in someone's couch, or go to a tough neighborhood in Rio to go there just because I feel like I can get an incredible training there. Not that many people are willing to leave that comfort to be like, dude, do I have to sleep here? There's cockroaches here and whatever. I could be in a nice place, So I give so much credit to those people too, not just the ones that, man, I got anything. No, you gotta, because a lot of people, oh yeah, just because he have, no, no, no. It's not just because he had support. It's nice, but at the end of the day, it's just how you're wired.
Yeah.
It's how he wanted to get better. He was definitely blessed that the family supported and saw that he was putting the effort, and little by little, I taught him like early to, even he was a blue belt. When he got purple, that's when he made money for the first time. I think Abu Dhabi. He
Yeah.
won his he was a weight, and I think lost the finals or something. Or I don't know. I know maybe it's that one. It doesn't matter. But he got paid like almost like 10 grand. That was a lot of money back then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially for you a purple belt. And I said, like, dude, this is the time, like more you can start kind of like telling your parents, like, hey, I don't need a little help this month. I'm good for this much, because now maybe for them to see that they're all the effort wasn't in vain. You know what I mean? Like they believe, and then you're making it happen. It's like, wow, like he's really taken off until he started to boom, like everyone else. Like it could be that the parents paying for the college, but they didn't.
Yeah.
They paid for the jiu-jitsu journey and paid off, and now he lives in Hawaii, got a beautiful family, just had a baby. And then shout out to Foundation BJJ in Kona.
Yeah.
Awesome spot. He's in Brazil right now with his competitors. So two competitors there, and both got gold,
What?
which is
Nice.
awesome. It's a long trip, dude, from
Yeah,
from
dude.
Kona to São Paulo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a big trip, and be able to. And I always told him I knew that he's a very good leader, and I knew that he is going to build a great team in Hawaii. And I feel that as far as competitive like teams in Hawaii overall, not just the Big Island, I think Foundation is the one that stands out the most,
Yeah.
that come out and come to the mainland, do well, and he's still performing in high level too. People don't know he won Europeans at black belt,
Yep.
adult, took second Brazilian national, so got a lot of results. But just to summarize, it comes just the way that he was wired, of like wanting to succeed. And I feel that's everyone who's listening. It comes down to there is a price to pay to do what you love, like we talk about since the beginning,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
To having the battles you think that he didn't have, dark passengers too, like to saying like, man, you're gonna do this, is it really gonna work?
Yeah.
So I think a very good takeaway from our conversation to people who's listening until right now is be more mindful of the negative voice. Try to
Yeah.
catch yourself. You see, like, kind of getting the little negative wave coming in, and like, wait. Let's kind of filter here a little bit,
Yeah.
because if not, at one point you're going to be like, um, I wish this, I wish that. There is a book. I'm not gonna maybe remember the full name. It is the top five regrets of the dying. I think
Oh,
it's
wow.
Brony Ware. I think that's the name of this nurse that basically start to collect, just stories, from like people in the last like 90 days of their lives, and then it put like their top five, and the number one was something along like, I wish I had the courage to be true to myself, but not what others expect of me.
Hmm.
The people want, you should do this, you should do that, and then next thing, time's going by, and you're gonna have a regret that, did I even try to do that?
Yeah.
So for everyone, man, listening to this, and you are on that mode that you getting on the verge of getting sick of it, the enough is enough. It's time, dude. It's time to step it up. And
Yeah.
I mentioned, I think in our conversation too, I remember Gary Vaynerchuk saying, like, and there was the same point that you got, when you get to a point that you can't breathe because you feel like anxious, and just like, my God, it just doesn't feel right. And they're like, you got to do something about it, man, because things are not going to change by itself.
Yeah. And the real key is that massive action, right? Um, and massive action doesn't have to be like, change your whole wardrobe and change your whole life. Maybe making that one phone call, maybe, calling the jiu-jitsu academy in your neighborhood and saying, hey, when's your, do you have a free trial class? What do you do for new people? Just having that conversation and getting the wheels turning, and then just setting little goals like, okay, next week I'm going to walk through the door. And the week after that, maybe I'll take a
Mm-hmm.
class, and, take it little by little. When people talk to me about changing their eating habits, obviously the obvious question is, well, what are you eating? Right. And they're like, oh, I do McDonald's 3 times a week, and I do this and I do that. And I'm like, okay, I don't tell them, don't go to McDonald's anymore. Obviously that we want to get them there, but you got to
Mm-hmm.
meet the person where they are. Right. Maybe, hey, do you supersize? Yeah. Well, don't supersize next time, and then just cut it down to 2 weeks. Yeah. 2 times a week. And then when they, if they start training jujitsu, hey man, if you're eating that McDonald's, it's not going to serve you well on the mats.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see that again. So, and that was really big for me. And that's where the dark passenger would come to me. Well, you can't train tonight. You didn't drink water. You don't have enough water, and you can't train tonight. And I would be like, you know what? I'm going to drink water right this second, and I'm going to train
Mm-hmm.
tonight. Those are the little things. Oh, you had a hamburger for lunch. You really shouldn't train tonight. I'm going to train tonight, and I'm going to pay for that hamburger, and I'm going to remember it tomorrow, because I don't want that cramp in my stomach when I'm trying to do jujitsu. So, those are the things you can do. But if you're not at a point where you're just sick of it, it's going to be a little harder to make that change, but you still can. You can still do that gradual change.
Yeah, in my school we have like two mat rooms, and then we have like two lobbies, and each lobby and each room we have like quotes like printed in the wall, and then each one has like a kind of like a topic around the quotes. And the second room, which is the first jiu-jitsu mat, it's kind of like the awareness room, just things related to that. And then it kind of brings to what you said about um the transformation and the action, and that is just a little formula of awareness plus action equals transformation.
Mm,
Because now that you become aware, they're like, yo, you are aware of what is happening, what's going on. You know what I mean? Like maybe you weren't before, but now you know. And that means you want to have a transformation. Without the action here, it's not going to happen. It's
yeah.
not going to magically happen. So if you do that, sure, then you have the transformation. So number one, the awareness, just kind of realize like, dude, this is not working,
Yeah.
And then now comes the battle with your dark passenger, like action or no action. So if it's no action, now there's no one to blame
Yeah.
but you. Like you weren't aware, you didn't know. That's fine. All of us went through moments like that. But now when you are aware, I was like, all right, dude, transformation time.
Yeah.
We gotta do it, whatever that is. So people train that who are not training and want to get back to you being procrastinating, maybe just twice a week, 2 days a week, just two,
That's fair.
just
Yeah.
two. So for people who are in the East Valley, in the East Mesa, how they can find Ares East Mesa.
So, our physical location is right off the corner of Ellsworth and Guadalupe. And you can find us at Ares East Mesa BJJ.com. Click on the link, become a member, and you will be prompted to schedule an appointment. And we can sit down and talk about all your goals and all your hopes and dreams, and hopefully we can meet those. And Instagram, Ares East Mesa BJJ. We try to post daily, but you'll see a lot of things on there. Like I post some stuff on nutrition, some mental, some mental stuff. I'll throw some ideas on training, a lot of training videos of classes going on. And I'm playing with the idea of live streaming some classes on Instagram. So that's another way you can find us. But yeah, East Valley, come by and see us.
Also, I forgot to ask you, I want you to just give the shout out. We talked a little bit earlier about your podcast. So just a quick run, like what does this come about one day? Like, you know what? I'm going to do a podcast.
Yeah. So I hope I don't go too long with the story, but it was 2020. The world is shut down. Making plans on different things for the academy that doesn't exist yet. Sitting in my backyard, and I'm talking to a friend of mine, and we're just like, I think I want to do a podcast. I think I want to do one. And life happens, and this is 2020, and in 2022 was the first time I hit record. So it was 2 years in the making. From the time I said I want to do a podcast to the day I hit record, it was 2 years.
Now, real quick, back to the day that you said, like, you know what, I want to do a podcast. So in about 6 seconds, what did your dark passenger say? Like, who is going to listen to you?
Who's going to listen to you? Have you heard your voice lately? You've got a big nose. You're not a tech guy. That's a big one. Do you even know about lighting? Like, all of that stuff is just haunts you, and all of the information is on YouTube. Everything you need is on YouTube. Go find it. Yeah,
that is true. And to wrap it up, what's exciting? What's going on? I mentioned about the podcast. It's going to almost 100 episodes.
We are close to episode 100. As a matter of fact, I wanted to ask you if you would be on episode 100. Me and maybe one other person. I'm not quite sure who yet, but I'd like to get you guys in episode 100. I know it's been like you were on episode 90, but I think episode 100 is a big deal. And I think, I don't think we finished our conversation.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? We did talk about with maybe bring Heath. Heath Flicker, for people who don't know, he's one of GD black belts, and he's the AZBJJL tournament director. He actually, he was my co-host in one of the episodes. Not I had one episode that I was interviewing, one of my last episodes actually. Okay. Interviewing someone running a social project and stuff. I was like, well, let me bring someone else, and then we can talk a little bit more about the competition scene in Arizona. We did talk, a little bit about it. Yeah. But it would be a good one. And anything exciting going on with the academy?
So with the academy, yes. So we've got a lot of things. It's kind of business as usual, kind of, but we also have big promotions just happened last week. We got a couple other events coming up. We're doing some open mats that are going to be fundraisers, and I'll have more information on that. But we also wanted to see if we could host a Jiu-Jitsu tribe event at our academy. And with your help, I would love to do that, and maybe host one of the people that needs it, one of the people that you want sponsored. So definitely want to talk to you about that. But yeah, I mean, there's always something going on at the academy. And if you want to just drop in between the hours of 6 p.m. and 8:30, I will find something for you to do. You can throw a gi on. We'll get you on the mat. I promise you'll have a great time.
Awesome. Alex, thank you so much, dude. And congratulations on the business. Congratulations on just making that transformation, having the awareness to say, like, I'm sick of it, taking the action, putting on the line, starting a business, transforming your life in everything, for physically speaking, mentally, and being more fulfilled, running a business that you love, doing a podcast that it's, as you already know, we make tons of money with that. So right. I know that you have your millions of dollars of sponsors just,
I'm sitting on a stack of cash right now.
Yeah. So it's just awesome that, you're able to transform your life. And like you said, later on, as far as like changing careers, and if you're there listening to this and you feel that it doesn't matter how old people come into my school and they're going to train. I always ask, and they say, like, how old are you? Like 45, like, oh, nice, still young. And they're like,
Yeah.
you know, like if they say 65, say like, oh, nice, still young. So they're all like, young, you know,
Yeah.
which is true, man. We're here and let's take advantage while we're here in this planet. And I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no, and thank you. You know, you've been someone that I've admired for a long time. And you know, I if anybody's not following your lead, they need to, because you've done so many great things you've done as much or more for jiu-jitsu in the Arizona area than any other person I can think of. Maybe there might be two other people I can think of that have done what you have done for Arizona jiu-jitsu. So I want to thank you for that. And you know, I consider you a mentor. So I really appreciate everything that you do.
Thank you so much. And hope you have a great day. See you soon.
All right. Take care.